Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this World Council of Credit Unions virtual training session. My name is Liz Stanislawski, and I'm the Director of Communications at World Council of Credit Unions. Before we get started, please take a moment to select your preferred language using the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen, English, Spanish, or Portuguese. Today's session brings climate finance to life for credit unions by pairing fresh global research with a real world working model. We'll begin with key findings from a recent WOCCU study on how credit unions are engaging in climate and clean energy finance, and then shift to practical lessons from Clean Energy Credit Union, exploring how this approach works in practice from product design to risk management. We're joined today by Eileen Mayamadian, Technical Director for Inclusive Financial Services at WOCCU, Terry Michelson, CEO of Clean Energy Credit Union, and Nicole Bierford, Vice President of Market Development and Sustainability at Clean Energy Credit Union. Now, if you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll get to as many questions as time allows. This session is being recorded and will be available on WOCCU's YouTube channel later this week. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to our presenters, Eileen, Terry, and Nicole. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Before I invite our colleagues from Clean Energy Credit Union to speak, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to give a bit of context about how this webinar came to be. Um, over the past few years, WOCU, in its engagement with its members, have been hearing a lot of conversation around climate. And we decided to take advantage of the year of the cooperative to really understand what credit unions are currently doing and where they want to go in climate in emerging markets and developing economies. So we know that our members are being increasingly affected by shocks, and that may be floods or droughts or hot, heat waves. And we also know that on a global level, this is translating into major losses. Most recent data says about $200 billion is lost annually to climate change, and that translates into about 4% of GDP losses. In emerging and developing markets, that the gap between what is actually needed to build climate resilience and the amount of money that's actually being invested in communities affected by climate change is massive. So from $365 billion in need to around 26 billion in investment. At the same time, we know that credit unions are very often working in those same communities that are affected by climate change. They're often at the forefront. They've been there for a long time, helping to build wealth, helping to build resilience among their members. And we also know that there's some interesting models of credit unions that have been successful in investing in climate. So with that, we wanted to understand a bit more. The study that we carried out last year really helps us understand what credit unions in emerging and developing economies are doing, what they want to be doing, how ready they are, and what are the enabling conditions that they need to get there. And to do this, we worked with the WOCCU statistical report. We did what we called a deep dive to understand from the associations a little bit more about what their members are doing in social and climate investment. We carried out a survey of credit unions where we received almost 200 responses from 76 countries. And we followed that up with some interviews to kind of help us understand the results of what we were seeing from the first two surveys. Many of you have seen this data before, but in the most recent data from 101 countries, there's about 67,000 credit unions serving over 412 million members globally. The 79 countries in emerging and developing economies make up 87% of those credit unions and over half of the members. And together, they have over $500 billion in assets, which says to us that there is an important movement that could start to move the needle on some of the needed climate investment if done deliberately. So just quickly, let's look at who are these credit unions. There's a lot of different sizes, and that is true across all regions. About half of credit union members in emerging and developing markets are served by some of the larger credit unions over $100 million, and the rest is distributed evenly around among smaller sizes. That's true across the globe, except in Africa, average credit union sizes tend to be a bit smaller. One thing that the study did confirm for us is that credit unions serve members that often are not served by other commercial financial institutions. And some of the member profiles that we can see is almost half of both members and borrowers of credit unions in emerging and developing economies are women. The average loan size of the surveyed credit unions was significantly smaller than commercial markets in the same economies, and most are self-employed either in agriculture or in other services. Beyond excluded groups, there's also a deliberate focus on communities that are considered vulnerable in the areas where credit unions work. About 90% of those surveys said that they either completely focus or have specific portfolios on groups considered vulnerable, and about half of the assets are invested in that. The communities that receive the most focus are women and youth, but also climate vulnerable populations was indicated by 30% of those that responded in the survey, which made us want to understand a little bit where are they in their climate journey. What we found is they're taking some pretty important steps. Over half of those that responded to the survey have either established climate goals or started to develop management policies around environment, social, and governance risks, or both. Fewer of them have started to offer climate finance products specifically, and even fewer have started to try to align with global gold standards in terms of climate investment. But quite a few of them, about 14% who aren't doing anything, indicated that they are interested. One thing that was pretty important for us was to kind of understand why they're getting involved in climate. And throughout the interviews, one thing that came out pretty clearly is it's really driven by a sense that the members need us to understand this better. They're getting hit, they're having impacts, and we really need to understand how to help make the investments. Um, this slide shows very similar. I just wanted to kind of highlight that, it's across all regions. You are seeing a lot more movement. These darker ones mean more. More than half of them have started on goals, impact, risk management, and far fewer of them on aligning with some of those global standards. But it is interesting to note that almost a quarter indicated that they have done some kind of external climate survey, which basically says to us that there is an interest. Um, However, there is not yet a lot of data that shows that they're reporting their climate portfolios separately. Credit unions indicated that they do need different capacity building in order to really help them to start to invest more seriously in climate. The biggest needs are really understanding the market, understanding the risk, and being able to report on the impact. About almost half said that they would need some support in developing climate loan portfolios, and about 40% in terms of climate regulations. In discussing with credit unions, one thing that came out is there's just sort of a question of how do we even get started? We have taken these steps, we're starting to develop goals, but there's a huge movement out there of climate investment. How do we identify partners? How do we get involved in those markets? So in looking at sort of where to start with capacity building, that was one of the areas that came out pretty clearly from the interviews. One other quick note, there is an interest in funding. A lot of the credit unions said they would be interested in external funding, and about 35% of them said they would specifically be interested in climate funding. Just to kind of bring this all together, what the survey did show us is, or what the study did show us, is that there is a deep and wide presence of credit unions throughout emerging and developing economies. They are serving vulnerable markets. There is a growing need to understand climate, but they need capacity building, and they have demonstrated a commitment. They're willing to invest their own resources in understanding this, but in addition, an interest in external needs. So I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time to listen to our findings. With that, I'm really excited to to pass over to our colleagues from Clean Energy Credit Union to learn a bit about their successful model and how they took their steps, what they've learned along the way. So thank you very much. Over to you, Nicole and Terry.
All right, and good morning, everyone.
Buenos
I'm Terry
días
Michelson, the
todos.
CEO of Clean Energy Credit
Soy
Union. We
Terry
are
Michelson,
very excited to
soy Terry
share
Michelson, soy
with you
la
this morning
directora
the
de
journey of our credit
Clean Energy
union, kind of
Credit
how
Union.
we
Estoy
came
muy
to
emocionada
be,
de compartir con
things that
ustedes
have been
cómo
very successful with our credit
empezamos
union, and
y
of
todos los
course,
éxitos que hemos
lessons
tenido
that
con
we've learned
nuestra
along the way
cooperativa y cosas que hemos
as
aprendido también en el
we
camino.
have gone
Eh,
into this market,
a
the
medida que
changes in
entramos a este
policy that have
mercado que va
happened,
cambiando en cuanto
and
a
of course, structuring
políticas
a
y
brand
la
new credit union
estructura, porque obviamente
is
estructurar una
never easy
cooperativa
to begin with.
nueva
So
no es
I'm very
fácil.
excited to
Y
share
entonces
all
estoy
these
muy
lessons
emocionada
learned,
de
and I'll
poder
be joined
compartir
with
todas
by
estas lecciones que
my
hemos aprendido
partner here,
y aquí con mi
Nicole Burford.
socia Nicole Burford.
Now, Clean Energy Credit Union,
Bueno,
I joined it in
Clean Energy,
2015
yo me
when
uní
we
en
were first
2016
organizing our credit union,
para,
and we
para crearla.
built this with a group
Creamos
of clean
esto con
energy
un grupo
enthusiasts,
de
and
entusiastas
we
de
decided
energías
that this
limpias
cooperative
y
model
decidimos
of
que este
credit unions
modelo
would be a natural
de
fit
cooperativa
to offer clean
iba a
energy
encajar muy
loans
bien para poder
that
ofrecer
were
préstamos
being
relacionados con
kind
las
of run by
energías limpias.
fintechs most of the
Y
time that were offering much higher rates.
porque
And we wanted to
normalmente este
make
tipo
these
de financiamientos tenían
affordable.
tasas muy
So,
altas,
of
entonces
course, our
queríamos
vision
ofrecer
was a
algo que
world
fuera
where everyone can
accesible
participate
para que
in the
todos
clean
pudieran
energy movement.
participar en el movimiento de
And
energías
we wanted
limpias.
to do that by
Y queríamos
offering
hacer esto al
loans
ofrecer
that were
préstamos,
with great
créditos
interest rates.
que tuvieran
And of
buenas tasas de
course, having a
interés
place where people can
accesibles y
deposit
que
their
fuera un
funds
lugar
where
donde
they
la
know
gente pudiera
where the
llegar y
money is
depositar
being spent.
su dinero y saber en qué se estaba gastando.
So as a cooperative model
Entonces,
goes,
como el modelo de
how they work is we have
como
members. Our
saben, es
members
que
are
llegan
our
nuestros
owners
socios,
of our
los
credit
socios son
union,
los dueños
and they
de la
deposit their
cooperativa, ellos
funds, and we
depositan sus
take their
fondos
money
y nosotros
to
tomamos
make
ese
clean
dinero
energy
y
loans with them
hacemos
by funding
préstamos
different
para
projects that we'll
energías
talk about in
limpias,
just a bit.
financiamos diferentes proyectos
And the
de los que vamos a
borrowers
hablar
get
en un momento
to
y
adapt their clean energy
los
projects,
socios
and
pueden
again, we hope
tomar
to
ese dinero
offer
para
more or
adoptarlo
better
para
rates,
sus proyectos
and then
de energías
we
limpias con
then
tasas de interés
do more
muy
loans.
accesibles y luego pagar su préstamo y poder
The
volver a
different
pedir
types of
un
clean energy
crédito.
loans that we
Los
offer,
diferentes tipos de
of course, we
financiamiento
really
que
started with
ofrecemos,
solar. Solar
obviamente
was
empezamos con la
part
energía
of our
solar.
organizing committee.
Eh,
We're
l-
in the solar field.
Nuestro
We knew a lot
comité
about
organizador estaba
products
en
in
el
that
sector
area. I learned a lot myself
de
because I'm a
energía solar.
credit union
Y
person,
bueno, yo
and
aprendí
I had
mucho
done some
de
solar
esto. He
loans in my
hecho
past,
también,
but
yo ya
not
había hecho algunos
primarily all
préstamos
solar
relacionados con
lending.
esto, pero no
To
como lo
help
hacemos en la cooperativa.
build
Es para
our
ayudar a
portfolio, we
construir,
then
a crear
started offering EV
esta
car
cartera de
loans.
productos.
We
Empezamos
recently started doing
eh,
selling, or not
ya
selling, but
también, ahora estamos
lending
haciendo
for
también
solar community
estamos
solar
haciendo
projects,
préstamos para
doing HVAC
compra de
systems,
vehículos
geothermal
eléctricos,
systems, and
también
heat
para
pumps, which are
comunidades
becoming more and
solares,
more popular,
eh, para
and different
bombas
types of
geotérmicas
clean
de
energy or
calentamiento
clean energy
y
loans,
también
and doing home improvements
para poder
such
hacer
as
renovaciones en
insulation,
casas
windows,
relacionadas con
sometimes
la
doors, and different types
con
of climate related
estas
products
energías
that we
limpias
offer.
como aislamientos y otros de tipo de cosas que se tienen que hacer que se tienen que ver con las energías limpias.
And to kind of give you an idea, we
Y
did
para
our
darles una
first clean
idea,
energy
nuestro
loan in
primer
April of
préstamo lo
2018.
hicimos
And
en abril de
it was a
2018
solar loan to
y
a man out in California.
fue para
And
un señor
since
en
then, we have
California para
grown
poner
those to
paneles
over
solares en su casa y
15,000
a partir
clean energy
de ahí
loans.
entonces hemos dado más de
And we
15,000.
have members all
También
across the
tenemos
US,
socios en todo
currently
Estados Unidos.
13,000
Actualmente
members
tenemos más de
are
13,000
partnering with
socios.
us. We've done $275 million
Hemos
in clean energy
dado
loans.
235
These
millones de
tend to
dólares en
also be
préstamos
smaller. They're
y eh,
not really large. About
no son
$35,000 is the
préstamos
average
muy
size of
grandes.
a
El promedio es
solar
de
loan
35
right
mil
now.
dólares
And we
para
do a lot of
los
our
de paneles
green home
solares
improvement loans are much
y
smaller, sometimes
algunos son más
about
pequeños,
$3,000 to five
a lo
thousand
mejor de
dollars.
3,000 a 5,000
Our
dólares
members are
para
supporting these loans by bringing in
renovaciones.
deposits, and we have
Y
$90 million
tenemos
in
más de
deposits
90
from our members that
millones
are
de
supporting these
depósitos
loans.
de nuestros socios, que es con lo
And
que se apoyan
one
de estos
thing that we
préstamos.
talk about a
Y una
lot, and we
cosa de
talk
lo
to
que
our employees
hablamos y
about and our
hablamos
members
también de nuestros
about,
empleados y nuestros
is
socios
measuring
es que
ourselves not
nosotros
just
nos
by
medimos no
profits,
solamente
because
por
we are a
utilidades,
not-for-profit
porque no
financial
somos
institution,
una institución
but we really
financiera con
wanted to
fines de lucro,
measure by impact.
sino que realmente
So
queremos
we
medirlo por
got
impacto.
some funding
Entonces
to do a
tenemos
study based
financiamiento
on all the
para
products that we
hacer un
offer,
estudio
and
basado
then
en
we
los
were
productos
able
que
to
ofrecemos y
build a carbon
pudimos
offset from
eh,
those products. So
Y de ahí
when we do a
podemos, de
loan,
ahí
we
partimos
also
para hacer otros
measure
productos.
the
Entonces, cuando
impact that they
damos
make.
cuando damos
To
un
date,
préstamo,
we have
medimos
offsetted
el
1.4
impacto que
million
se hace
tons of carbon
y podemos
offsets.
decir
So
que
we're very
hemos
excited about that
podido,
number. Proud to be here.
tenemos 1.4 millones de toneladas de dióxido de carbono, digamos, que se compensa
Jumped in
con
here.
estos préstamos que hemos dado. Ese es
And
el impacto que
as
tiene de
Terry has
manera
alluded
climática.
to, there is no
Y
blueprint
bueno,
for
sí, como ya
green
dijo
lending.
Terry,
I
no
know that the survey
hay,
results showed it.
no hay,
Members
no
need
queda
these
huella,
types
no
of
hay huella de
services.
carbono
It
con
doesn't
estos
mean that they're
préstamos que
offered
damos.
and there's this
Eh,
easy way to
y
showcase them. So what we've done is
entonces lo que hemos
we
hecho
figured it out
es
over time.
que
So the framework that we have
ese es
built,
el marco de
green
trabajo con el
lending
que
has
hicimos para el
involved a
préstamo de
lot of things you might see
financiamientos
in other
de
industries,
ese tipo de
but
financiamientos.
we're
Y
applying it
tal vez
here.
esto
So
se utiliza en
we're
muchos sitios,
creating
pero
new
aquí lo
programs.
aplicamos.
So we're
Estamos
learning
creando
from our
nuevos
members and
programas,
our
estamos
partners
aprendiendo de
all of the
nuestros
time. We're
socios
listening to them and we're
y de
developing
nuestros
programs
y
as
y de
needed
nuestros
in
aliados.
the
Estamos siempre
industry to make
desarrollando nuevos
sure that
programas
we
según se
are
requieren en la
serving
industria para
those
asegurarnos
needs.
de que
So when new
realmente estamos
technology is coming out,
atendiendo las
we might be
necesidades
developing a product when
conforme van surgiendo.
oftentimes our members,
Muchas
they're the
veces
ones out
nuestros
in
socios
the
son los
space.
que
They're
están
hearing about
afuera
a
y ellos
different
escuchan sobre diferentes
opportunity to partner with like
oportunidades
a municipality or
para
something like Terry will
invertir
talk about. They'll come to us and we try
entonces
and
ellos vienen y
develop
nos dicen,
programs
entonces tratamos
there.
de desarrollar
Our Clean
programas
Energy for
que
All
se ajusten
program
a esas
is a
necesidades.
program
Nuestro
that
programa de
serves
energías
low
limpias
income as well
ayuda
as
también
those who
a
identify as
personas con
BIPOC. And we developed that program because we saw a need in the
ingresos y lo
marketplace
desarrollamos
and we
porque
saw
vimos una necesidad en el
that there was
mercado
inefficient
y
services
vimos
for
que no había
individuals in those
servicios
markets.
eficientes para personas en
We
esos
are
mercados.
constantly pivoting quickly to innovate
Constantemente
and
estamos
innovating
cambiando e
often. So
innovando.
this industry is
Entonces,
changing
esta
quite a
industria
bit.
está cambiando
As you can see, the next one is
constantemente.
keeping up with the industry.
Entonces hay que
We're watching the
mantenerse
market. We
actualizados.
are
Siempre
pivoting
estamos
as
viendo el
needed to
mercado y
develop new
hacemos
products and
cambios
services.
según se
This year
requiera.
in
Y vamos
July, we
desarrollando
found
nuevos
out that it
productos.
was
En
announced that the
julio, por
tax
ejemplo, se
credit in
anunció
the United States,
que
the federal tax credit, which covered
el crédito
13% of solar
fiscal
or 30% of solar,
que
was
cubre
sunsetting. So we quickly
30%
pivoted to
de
bring a
industria
new
solar se iba a
product to the
compensar.
market.
Entonces
We worked
tuvimos
with
que
our installers, we
salir con
worked with
nuestro
our
producto
members.
al
What would you
mercado.
need in this new
Trabajamos con
climate
nuestros socios
so that
para
we
decir,
could
ok, en
develop
este
that and
nuevo
have something
clima
in the
fiscal, ¿qué
market
necesitan
quickly?
para que puedan
We've
adaptarse?
also have to keep
También
up with supply chain. So
tenemos que
just
también estar
understanding the
actualizados
market,
con
and I know
la
that sounds like a lot,
cadena de
but as you're
suministro. Yo
in
sé
it, you're
que esto
talking, you're
suena como
building
que
those
son muchas
partnerships,
cosas, pero
you
bueno,
really
cuando
begin to
empiezan a construir
understand
estas
things like
redes de
Tesla
aliados y
Powerwall.
de
They're a
socios,
very
se dan
popular
cuenta que es muy
solar
útil. A ellos
product.
mismos les van
Before we
dando
used to
toda la
look at
información.
inverters and batteries different.
Antes
Now they
nosotros veíamos las
combine
baterías de otra
those
manera.
products. So just
Ahora
being able
combinamos
to keep up,
productos
being able to understand what's happening and
englobamos
what's
diferentes
evolving
productos en un solo
is
préstamo. Por
very
eso vamos viendo
important,
cómo
and
se evoluciona
navigating those
todo
new
y
situations.
vamos,
For us as a
ahora sí que
credit
sobre la
union that's
marcha vamos viendo qué se va
about
haciendo.
8 years old, new
Eh,
situations are
y
common
bueno,
because we haven't been
siempre
around
tenemos
for a
nuevas
long time.
situaciones
So
porque
in
no tenemos mucho
2022, when
tiempo en el
we had a
mercado.
lot of
En el
rate increases
2022
in a quick
tuvimos
amount of
un
time,
aumento
we
muy
were
grande en
able
poco
to
tiempo y
quickly react to
pudimos
those, navigate
actuar
that new situation so that we
rápidamente
could
para
offer
adaptarnos a
our
esa
members a
situación, para
product
poder
that worked for them,
ofrecer
because
a
most of
nuestros
our loans are solar.
socios
Solar is
los
about
productos
6
que
months of
necesitan
installation,
porque
so a much longer loan
normalmente
than what
nuestros
you're
productos
used
eran
to for
de
some other
paneles
products
solares, de
such
industria
as an
solar, pero
EV. So
empezó,
really
como les digo, en el
important to
2022
just
empezamos a
be
hacer más
uncomfortable a little bit
para
and
coches eléctricos, por
be
ejemplo.
able to pivot
Y
your
bueno,
model
entonces
as
sí es muy
needed.
importante que tengan un
I
modelo que
think we
pueda
have a
ajustarse y
survey
adaptarse
question.
fácilmente. Ahora tenemos
So
una pregunta, una
this
encuesta.
one is around how is
Esta
your
pregunta
organization
es, ¿de qué manera su
participating in broader
organización
climate-related
participa
initiatives? So
en
that should pop up on your
iniciativas más
screen.
amplias de industrias de energías limpias? Entonces, si pueden contestar, estamos observando, monitoreamos las conversaciones, hacemos redes, estamos colaborando o somos líderes en el mercado y ayudamos a generar los estándares del programa.
Oh, awesome. So great. So it looks like a lot of you, 44%, are observing, monitoring the climate conversations, but not yet participating. We have a lot of you networking and attending the industry events. And then a few collaborating on the partnerships. Awesome. We'll talk about partnerships a lot today. And then we have some leaders as well, actively driving the conversation. That is fantastic. When we think about the conversation, that is where we really tried to fit into the mix, is how can we drive the conversation? How can we make sure that more individuals know that this is needed? And we do that kind of on both sides. Not only are we leading and doing a lot of credit union trainings. But on the flip side, you saw our model and you saw the fact that the funds that we take in directly influence clean energy projects. So we've been able to lead the conversation on where's your money going, and people understanding what their money is supporting, and that we offer a way to align it with their values, and so do other institutions. So really just trying to get in the conversation and get people paying attention to that.
And we've also, one thing that we really wanted to make sure is that not only do we focus on the climate, but we really put forward our stance on ethical banking, and such as not offering overdraft fees and such, and really keeping this whole holistic piece together. Of course, the environment to us is very, very important, and we went out and worked hard to get the B Corp certification, and we're one of the few credit unions in the United States to have that certification, and we're very proud to be going forward with our financial model.
We're going to go into key factors of success. Let you take it away, Tara.
One, where we started, of course, when you charter a new credit union, is working with our regulator, which is the NCUA. So this is not easy to charter a new credit union, and working through a model with a new class of assets for lending was a challenge in itself. That was a lot of work to get them comfortable with the type of lending we wanted to do. Solar loans are not these short-term loans. They are longer-term loans. And there wasn't a lot of industry, support, at least metrics, I would say. There's a lot for home loans, for car loans, for credit cards, unsecured, but solar lending didn't really have its own category. So it's something that we're building now that we're getting to be 9 years in. But at the time, we really had to work with our regulators to get them comfortable. Starting smaller, they don't like a lot of growth really quick, even though we have grown pretty fast compared to other startup credit unions. And we really leveraged our industry experience with them, making them comfortable. We had an organizing group that was full of clean energy enthusiasts and people in the solar industry. And we really looked at the products that we offered. I mentioned that we added some EV lending in there. They know cars, so we added some car loans into our mix. And we really made sure that having a national footprint, we were able to also diversify our portfolio, not only in the products, but also in geography. So that also helped them feel a little bit more comfortable as well. So we did get to the point where regulators were bringing us credit unions to kind of help them get started in programs. So I think partnering with our government programs has been something that has been helpful to them, and this has allowed us to put on more types of loans that our regulators kind of built a little bit more security around some of the products that we were offering. So I'll have you go to the next screen, Nicole. So once we got our regulators comfortable, we were able to charter our program. Some of the first things that we did is we leveraged some programs that were already in place. Our first one was out in Boulder County in Colorado, and they offered us a loan loss reserve. And this was really helpful for us because we were able to take on loans from a community and know that if something were to happen, that 80% of those loans would be paid back to us. So it lowered that risk for us in going into this market. So that was extremely beneficial when we were talking with regulators, saying that this portion of our loan pool is guaranteed. And it allowed us to, of course, build on that program and then get out to other states. We work with New York and Maryland on different types of programs. Some buy down interest rates for their communities. We're down to 0% for like 2 years. And we have some that, buy down rates for a certain up to like 3.99. So there's been different programs we've been really, I guess we've been lucky to be able to partner with, but it's helped our portfolios grow, and it's helped our regulators and our board feel more comfortable with the type of lending that we're doing. And because we kind of saw some of the group that had joining us for this webinar, we went out and looked at different programs in certain areas across the world, and they're out there. So you too can go out in your communities, in your countries, in your states, and find some programs that might fit into what you want to do, and also help your regulators feel a little bit more comfortable with you getting into that market. And it opens you up to people in your community because they'll see your financial institution's name and feel comfortable about getting some different loans with you.
I'm going to talk about building an installer network. So when we first started our lending, we really had we built it, now come type of scenario. And at some point we understood that we can't service everyone. We can't help everyone. We really needed to do this in a very organized fashion. And so we developed a pilot program with installers to work really closely with them. When I'm talking about installers, I'm meaning people who are installing solar, geothermal, the windows, the insulation, all the different things that we talked about. So the actual people on the ground across the table from your members in their homes, talking with them about these improvements. And we were able to identify the importance of finding the right installer partners who share our values and that are financially sound. And so we have a review process. So right now, if you would like to work with us, at least on the solar side, you apply on our website. We're actually looking at their financials and making sure they're financially sound in the beginning, as well as on an annual basis. And we are looking at online reviews. We're just trying to really get an understanding of, are these the types of partners that our members might have a solar loan for 20 years. They're going to be our members for a long time. Are these institutions going to be there to help them? Are they going to sell them the right size system? And so those relationships are really important to understand that. We've really leveraged and developed these programs over time. We even co-designed a lot of products with them. So earlier I mentioned when that tax credit incentive went away on the solar side, we're on the phone with our installers right away. What are your customers asking for? What are they nervous about? How do you think the industry is going to look after this tax credit sunsets? When heat pumps were coming to market, there was a lot of misinformation about them. Do they work in high altitude? Do they work if it's too cold? All of these things. We're working with our installers to understand that, to provide education, and to provide products that fit the market needs. They really know the barriers, and they can help us develop purpose-built products that fit the market. Also, one thing we saw in the market is that there was a lot of what we call dealer fees. So people padding a lot of finance charges onto the systems themselves and really charging a lot of fees to make that more expensive. So we've gone out with the thought process, no dealer fees. And so these dealers love that. These installers, they don't want to have to pay these fees just to get affordable financing. And we don't think that members should have to carry those fees. And so just really understanding the market and where you can make things better for installers and members. I really wanted to kind of use this visual so that you could kind of understand who does what, because what we've really tried to do is develop a mutually beneficial relationship where the installers leverage their expertise and we leverage our expertise. So the installers' role are identifying those qualified customers, and we are doing the credit assessment. So they're applying, we're reviewing that. The installers are recommending the equipment packages, what that home needs. And our end, we are looking at what loan terms do you need, what pricing. The installers are installing the system, they're doing the actual work, and we are dispersing the funds to them. We actually have chosen in almost all of our loans to disperse directly to those installers. So we pay the installers the money rather than those members. And that is really helpful because it has that installer it incentivizes them to be a part of the loan process. So they're, turning in contracts to us, they're putting in invoices. And before we distribute funds at the end of a project, the installer and the member sign an affidavit saying, yes, this system is completed and this is functioning. In addition to that, we do look at past inspection. We look at permission to operate from utilities, things like that. But we really want confidence in knowing this is working. This is going to be a good investment for the customer. Right now, about 60% of our loan applications are originated through those dealer and contractor partners. So you saw the breadth of what we're doing. That's a lot of loans through those partners. And like I said, that mutually beneficial partnership is so crucial to making sure that you can build this.
One thing when we started our credit union, and something that we work with a lot is helping other credit unions to get into the clean energy movement. We've also worked with teaching through inclusive and working with solar lending types of programs and green home improvement classes, I'd say. But one area that we felt that we could help with was our loan participations. So what we've done, and this also helps us with our liquidity, and we'll talk about that a little bit and further into this webinar. But the loan participations that we did, we have packaged up, we've offered them to small credit unions and larger credit unions, and we've chunked them out in smaller pieces so we could get more people understanding what type of loan products that these are. This also has helped several credit unions get into this type of lending by looking at how we put our loan documents together, looking at how we structure these types of loans, and also putting these assets on their books, because our delinquency rate is really low. We're at 26 basis points in delinquency, and that is really good for our market. We went about 4.5 years without a delinquency, so it took a while before we received our first delinquency, and so it was a really great asset class. So it's nice if that is available to you in your market. For those in the US, we do put those out once in a while. We don't do as many loan participations as we did at the beginning, but we do put out maybe 3 or 4 participation packages a year. So now we're going to ask another question for you, which is, I can't see it. Which of the following, I think it's load products, do you provide to your members or customers?
Terry and Nicole, while they are answering this question, there's a couple of questions that came in. The first one, I think, is an easy one. Where is clean energy located? So you might want to take that. And also there's some questions I can add if there's time.
Oh, did you have another question? Well, Clean Energy
Yes, there are 2 more.
Is located in Colorado. However, we are an online-only financial institution, and we help people across the United States. But our home office is here in Inglewood, Colorado.
Great. And from Mexico, the question is, have you considered funding rainwater harvesting systems?
We're always looking for different types of products to offer, and yes, we are looking at different climate-related products. And it's really, there's, I'm sure you've heard about all the wildfires and things happening in different parts of the United States and flooding, and there's a need. I'm living in Colorado. we're having a drought here. I mean, we've had less, it's going to be 60 all week here in Colorado, and it's usually snowy. And I have, I can't usually wear shorts in February in Colorado, and now it's gotten pretty warm. So yes, we do continually look at climate-related type of products.
Excellent. And then the last one is, since clean energy has 275 million in loans, but 75 million in deposits, how are you funding those loans?
As I mentioned, we do have loan participations. So it's been really nice to kind of cycle those funds through. And so if we sell participations, then we can then provide more loans. And we keep 10% of all of our loan participations that we do sell off our books. So that's been a way that we generate. And then, of course, people pay off those loans over time. We'll track this, and as we continue to get more and more data from this market, it's about 4 to 6 years a solar loan will stay on your books. Of course, car loans are usually with about 3 years before someone goes in and does another car. We're thinking with EVs, though, that they might stay on our books a little bit longer. Hope that makes sense.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. For everyone else, any more questions, just keep dropping them in the chat.
So it looks like a lot of you are offering, do we want to talk about the survey? Yeah. Looks like a lot of you are offering auto loans and home improvement and refinances. So that's a good majority of you that are in the market. All right, Nicole.
In here. So I know a lot of this is about where to get started. How can you do it? So we wanted to provide some practical ways that you could, get into this type of lending, especially at a pace where you feel more comfortable for your organization, your board, and really easing into it. And some of those ways would be starting with your existing customers. You know your existing customers, much like the ask about the rainwater. You know the types of things that are going on in your geography, your market, and you understand how you can help your customers. So perhaps it is heat waves that are happening, but none of the homes have air conditioning or a cooling component. And developing different programs that serve just that need, and you can really grow from there. So working with your members, listening to them, what do they need? And we're focusing on the proven technologies. There are so many different things. On a daily basis, we'll get an email of some two-wheeled car or some different types of thing that's happening in the space. And while we love that and we're always innovating, like I mentioned, we also looking at those proven technologies like heat pumps that have been in the market now for a while and have substantial data to help. Solar, also been in the market for quite a while. Looking at those technologies and focusing on those rather than maybe going out to something new and non-established is a great way to start, as well as the familiar sector. So we just asked you about the number doing auto loans and home improvement, and a vast majority of you are. Those same principles can be applied to electric vehicles. It's not that different from doing an auto loan. And the same with the home improvements. We do green home improvements. We have standards as far as we have a list of efficiencies that we want. We follow some government ratings such as Energy Star ratings just to make sure that they are efficient, but it is very similar to the home improvement loans that you're already doing. So how can you reshape some of the things you're doing just to make sure that they have that emphasis on energy efficiency and clean energy? And also perhaps you already have some partnerships in place. You might already work with a utility or a nonprofit, or some businesses that bank with you already might be installers of some of those products. Could you talk to just one or two of those to kind of develop a small program that could grow and have wings? Because like what Terry talked about earlier on those programs is we have learned those over time. We have done some that have not been great, and they haven't been, they have offered really good grants and stuff, but they just haven't been adopted. And so you have to figure out what works for your members, what works for your community over time. And And then building that internal expertise and quality standards. So one of the teams that I manage focuses specifically on this. Our team just has an understanding of the technology basics. So they understand solar, and they are able to maintain an approved equipment and project list so that we know the different items that we're working on. We can review the type of technology and we're familiar with it, and we trust that we are lending for the right types of technologies. And that helps us reduce risk quite a bit. We're looking at these project plans. We're understanding what's going on. We're understanding that there are warranties on these. And that really helps us feel confident in what we're lending for, as well as helping us reduce risk. And our regulators love seeing that as well. Alrighty. All right, last question. At what stage is your organization in the implementation of clean energy financing?
Do you want to take a few more questions right now?
Yes, that would be great, Cass. That would be
Okay.
fantastic.
So there's a question again from Karina asking about the model of houses that you finance. Is it competitive in the existing market? So is the incentive to buy a sustainable house because it's cheaper, or because people are incentivized to look at something that's more sustainable?
I think geographically based, it comes from all different reasons. So it is there. We do have a lot of members that sustainability is their main goal. They want to build a sustainable lifestyle. They want to take that into the home that they live in. But energy efficiency and saving money is also a very big motivator for people. In the US, we're seeing as high as 15% energy hikes. So here in Colorado, that's what I'm seeing on my gas bill. It's pretty significant for natural gas. And so there is a big incentive to save that money, to understand if I go solar, I'm going to know what my bills are consistently and not have to plan for what the market is doing. So we see people with different motivations. And Terry,
I would say the climate, right now, and things that are happening, the fires in California. We just had a huge cold snap in the South, and people lost power. And if their homes aren't insulated well, and they don't have people, and then people will start looking at like battery backups, what's out there for them, so they can keep energy flowing into their homes. But I think a lot of times it's a reactionary piece, is when something's happened in their community. It happened in Texas as well, with all the blackouts they were having at the time, and more people in Texas were adopting not only solar but battery storage as well. So those, I really feel that a lot of times we are a reactive society.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'll let you know if there's more.
thank you. All right. See if we got those results yet. There we go. Awesome.
35% are exploring and researching, which is amazing.
Yes. Awesome. 15% active. 19% fully operational. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Awesome. Just good to see where everyone is at. Head into some of the drivers of success.
And all these pictures that you see are actual members. So these are our members. Our members are so nice to send in pictures of them and their projects. So just wanted to throw that in.
And they're extremely motivated by
they
t-shirts.
look like professional models. I know.
Yeah, right. We have these support clean energy t-shirts that we'll send out to folks, and they love them. So that's fun. All right. So the key drivers of success. The not-for-profit model that we've established is huge. As Terry mentioned earlier, we limit fees quite a bit. Our goal is to make clean energy affordable. Adding a lot of fees, padding the financing does not make it affordable. And so we are big proponents of limiting the fees as much as possible. And this has won us a lot of relationships with those installers, with those government programs is that if we can do volume and we can start to really do that, we don't need to live on fees. We don't want to take advantage of the individuals that are trying to do something good, that are trying to afford things and prey on them to make them pay more fees. This not-for-profit model also allows us to focus on partnerships. Not a lot of nonprofits also want to work with other people who have a mission alignment and a vested interest in people over profit. And so it really makes people put their guard down right away when we emphasize that we are very focused on those individuals. We're not focused on, just churning a profit. And that member first approach. Members are our owners as a cooperative model. They play a key component in what we do. When we develop products, someone might bring one to us. Terry and I might go in, look at the numbers and find, no, actually, that isn't a good product on paper. And we will show them, which is enlightening to people, but we really do. It really gives us the opportunity to be selective and to put things out in the market that are member facing and positive for the member. All right. Growth in the clean energy segment. We saw it in the survey results in the beginning. There's a lot of growth happening in this segment. People need this. Members are going to be coming to you asking for these types if they're not already. And there's a lot of appetite for energy independence. I mentioned the hikes that we're seeing here in the States and in Colorado. It makes people want to be independent so that they don't have to worry about what their bills are going to do. They can have that flat loan payment that helps them stabilize their budget. And that offsetting. So one thing that we do when we look at solar systems is we do anticipate what is the offset of your bill going to be. Are we offsetting your entire utility bill? Is that what you're expecting? Because if people are expecting to offset their bill and they have a small system that they're putting on only a few panels, they're still going to have a utility bill. So trying to understand what that member is trying to accomplish and making sure that we are offsetting that bill rather than adding a loan payment on top of a utility bill.
Yeah, improving members' financial lives is very important.
Absolutely. All right.
And we kind of answered this question before. We talked about liquidity and demand. But when you start, you really need to know what your capacity for these type of loans are, and when you get into these programs as well. So we've had programs where someone's asked for a lot more than what we have available to lend, and you still have to come up with the funds. We've had very lean times where we were 109% lent out, and we were out there actively having to take out loans to be able to fund more loans. We then added in something called subordinated debt onto our financials to help prop us up to be able to allow us to lend more out into the community, and it's been very, very helpful. We are a low income designated credit union, and that allows us to bring in more non-member deposits in to help us, and also that subordinated debt. So those two factors have really increased our ability to lend out. But you don't want to partner with a program that you can't fund. And so really understanding what you're getting into is important. And, having that ability to, we were able to cycle our participations out and sell our loans so we could get more capacity on our books. And to make sure that you really align this with what if you have a board and what your regulators have, and understanding that we have to have our concentration in certain products as well, which is why we've really diversified our product line. That is before you go into this type of market, really understand what the needs are in your community, what you can fund, how you're going to protect it. Those loan loss reserve programs were really helpful to us. I think at one time, 15 to 20% of all the loans we put on our books were part of a loan loss reserve program. So that really helped us feel more comfortable with getting into new markets. especially if these communities were going to offer one. And helping people out in those low-income communities and Black and Brown communities across our country were very important to us. And it really, those successful programs are necessary. There's so many people facing energy burdens out there. And I think with that, we're open to more questions if you have them.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much. This has been, I think, really interesting. I've learned a lot just about sort of how you've approached. There are a couple more questions that I'll ask, and I invite everyone else that may have some to put them into the chat. One of the questions is really around, you've touched on it a bit, but maybe going into a bit more capacity. How do you get connected with funders, with capacity building in this area? And so I just want to know if you have any sort of broad recommendations as to how you did it, and also maybe some institutions that are out there that we should be looking at.
Well, I think our first approach is really being out in the communities. Sometimes our installers helped us and they connected us with programs. And then we had some interns that we brought in, and they went out and they looked at all the different energy programs in the area, always looking at bringing young minds in to help us as well. And we had one intern that just went out there and wrote down all the different programs and did some outreach. So I think that was really important to us. But we found that a lot of people came to us, which may just be because of our name. But we got a lot of influx. You have to, once you get into this mix, you really have to sift through because we're a small organization. At the time we started, it was myself and one other person, maybe a couple volunteers that part of them were my kids. I had to, get people involved because we started small. And then, we had to build as we grew, but just really understanding what you can take on. But I would get out with your community, get out with utility companies. And then if your states have something that they offer, and then maybe work with some nonprofits. There's a lot of people out there that are making decisions every day between eating and having energy. So sometimes there's some nonprofits that will also be able to partner with you as well. Nicole, you might have some other ideas.
I will say every time, I'm always putting in requests to go speak at places. So Terry's spoken at the Net Zero Conference, which is a global conference just talking about getting to net zero. And I'll just put in different things. Hey, we want to talk about this. We want to talk about strategies. We want to brainstorm with people. Every time we speak, another speaking opportunity or another partner or another organization comes to us and wants to have conversations. So I know like entering the conversation can be a little bit challenging, but I do feel confident that once you're in there, you'll be able to carry on those conversations.
We've recently partnered with a Mitsubishi. That was one that we were partnering with. So even the products themselves, there's partnership opportunities. So I think there's some different ways you can get in there.
Excellent, thanks. One of the other questions is there's a couple more sort of very specific technical questions around, for example, how many credits for electric cars were given in 2025? I don't know if you have that data, but how did you measure the impact? Oh, you'll send that.
I would say that solar tends to be the biggest bang for the buck, I would say, as we found in our research. And hot water heaters, those are high up there too.
Yeah.
Oh, Nicole's probably looking it up right now.
I was just going to pull as far as how many loans we did in 2025 for electric vehicles. I actually had this pulled up, but I was afraid I was going to share the wrong screen with multiple PowerPoints pulled up. But about 5 million of our lending of the 57 million that we lended out in 2025 were those electric vehicles. So about 10% of our lending. We did see a significant drop in that after September of this year when some of those incentives and tax credit expired. But it still is efficient. I have an electric vehicle and I never buy gas, and it's fantastic.
Well, and we don't mention that Nicole worked with us to get a partnership with Uber and Uber Eats to offer used EV cars and hybrid EVs to their drivers. And it was a program, and they offered them an incentive to do that. So that was another great program we were able to do. So though we have 5 million in loans, a lot of those are 26,000 and like very small loans. Well, not very
Okay.
small, but smaller.
And how do you track the impact of the electrical vehicle investments that you're making?
So, as Carrie mentioned, we've done a study, and that study really dives into all of our loan categories. So, when we think about electric vehicles, it looks at what are the electric vehicles on the market, what are the ones that make up our portfolio, what is the average, their range, how much can they offset? So, comparing it to a combustion engine vehicle, and then saying, okay, each loan that you do, or each loan dollar actually, that goes in offsets this much money. And then we overlay that on our portfolio. So we have an understanding of, on average, every loan dollar that we lend out does offsets X amount of carbon. We did $5 million. So we can anticipate. It's not a perfect math, but because we can't go in depth to each exact vehicle, but we're trying our best to relate it to market standards at the time and our portfolio.
All right. Well, thank you both very much. There's a few more questions. I think what we can promise is if you stick your emails in the chat, we'll actually send you a response to any questions we didn't get to. But thank you all very much for joining, and thank you to our speakers. It was really very informative and a very interesting experience. And we're hoping that clean energy's experience here in the United States somehow can inspire our members around the world. Thank you all very much.
And one last note, if you're still on here, if you did enjoy this session and you're interested in more in-depth learning and global exchange, registration is now open for the World Credit Union Conference. World Council will co-host the premier global credit union event with the customer-owned banking association in Sydney, Australia, from July 19th through July 22nd, 2026. It's going to be a great time. We'd love to see you there. You can scan the QR code on your screen to learn more and take advantage of early bird registration. So thank you, everyone. That concludes today's webinar. Thanks again for joining us. Again, you will be able to see this on our WOCCU YouTube channel soon if you want to go back and rewatch it. But have a great rest of your day and evening. Thank you, everyone.